The laughter echoed across the exhibition hall before Rowan Mercer even had a chance to explain himself. Hundreds of people crowded around polished concept vehicles worth millions of dollars, while Rowan stood beside a battered old pickup truck covered in dust, grease, and years of hard work. Under its hood was a tangled maze of copper pipes and handmade components that looked more like an unfinished science project than a breakthrough invention. People shook their heads. Some smirked. Others didn't even bother hiding their amusement. And standing in front of him was Cassandra Vail, the celebrated CEO of one of the country's largest automotive companies. She looked at the strange machine, smiled politely, and laughed. What happened next would change both of their lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and never judging someone by appearances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to Beyond Single Dad for more powerful stories that remind us what truly matters. The Future Mobility Expo was supposed to be Rowan's last chance. At 46 years old, he had spent nearly a decade working alone in a small workshop behind his late father's farmhouse. While major corporations poured billions into research and development, Rowan worked with salvaged materials, borrowed tools, and endless determination. Most people thought he was wasting his life. His neighbors often saw the lights in his workshop glowing late into the night. They watched him miss holidays, skip vacations, and spend every spare dollar on experiments nobody believed would succeed. What they didn't know was why he kept going. 5 years earlier, Rowan had lost his wife, Marissa, after a long battle with illness. During those difficult months, medical bills consumed nearly everything they owned. Fuel costs made frequent trips to distant hospitals even harder. One evening, exhausted and heartbroken, Rowan had made a promise beside her hospital bed. He would dedicate his life to creating something that could help ordinary families save money. Marissa never lived to see the results. But Rowan never forgot that promise. For years he failed. Prototype after prototype ended in disappointment. Engines stalled. Parts broke. Calculations proved wrong. There were nights he sat alone on the workshop floor wondering whether everyone else was right. Yet every morning he started again. Eventually, a pattern emerged. Instead of chasing expensive electronic systems like major manufacturers, Rowan focused on mechanical efficiency. He studied old engineering manuals, forgotten patents, and principles that modern designers had largely abandoned. Slowly, the impossible began to look possible. The system wasn't elegant. It wasn't pretty. But it worked. And according to Rowan's measurements, it reduced fuel consumption by nearly 40%. Nobody believed him. Which was why he brought his old truck to the expo. Unfortunately, the moment people saw it, they dismissed him. The contrast was almost painful. Nearby stood futuristic vehicles surrounded by giant digital displays and marketing teams. Meanwhile, Rowan stood alone beside a truck that looked ready for a scrapyard. Then Cassandra arrived. As CEO, she was known throughout the industry for her sharp intelligence and uncompromising standards. She had built her company into a powerhouse through discipline, innovation, and relentless ambition. When she first saw Rowan's truck, she assumed it was another publicity stunt. The copper pipes seemed absurd. The handmade fittings looked crude. The entire thing appeared decades behind modern technology. Her laughter wasn't cruel. It was simply disbelief. But Rowan felt every pair of eyes turning toward him. For a moment, humiliation washed over him. Years of sacrifice seemed to collapse under the weight of a single laugh. Yet something inside him refused to quit. Instead of arguing, he quietly invited Cassandra and her engineering team to test the vehicle themselves. The invitation surprised everyone. Most inventors became defensive when challenged. Rowan simply stepped aside and handed them the keys. What followed silenced the room. Over the next several hours, engineers inspected every component. They ran diagnostics, measured outputs, verified fuel consumption, and repeated the tests again and again. Each time, the results remained the same. The truck consistently used dramatically less fuel than comparable systems. The numbers were undeniable. Confusion spread through the engineering team. Then came curiosity. Then amazement. Finally, respect. Cassandra watched as her expert struggled to explain how a man working alone in a rural workshop had achieved something their multi-million-dollar research programs had failed to accomplish. The crowd that once laughed now gathered in stunned silence. People took photos. Reporters arrived. Industry leaders pushed closer. Yet Rowan remained remarkably calm. Years of hardship had taught him that recognition was never guaranteed. What mattered was keeping a promise. Late that afternoon, Cassandra requested a private meeting. Inside a quiet conference room away from the cameras, she listened as Rowan shared the story behind his invention. He spoke about Marissa. About hospital drives. About empty bank accounts. About nights spent wondering whether his work mattered. For the first time that day, Cassandra's confidence faded. She realized she had seen only an old truck. She had failed to see the grief, determination, and love hidden beneath every welded joint and copper pipe. By the end of the conversation, tears filled her eyes. Not because of the technology. Because of the men. Within months, a partnership was announced. Rowan's design became the foundation for a new generation of fuel-efficient systems. More importantly, he negotiated something many corporations would never have considered. A portion of every product sold would support transportation assistance programs for families facing serious medical challenges. The same struggle that had once nearly broken him would now help thousands of others. Years later, Rowan often visited those programs quietly, without publicity. He met parents driving children to treatment. Caregivers traveling long distances to hospitals. Families desperately trying to stretch every dollar. And every time he heard their stories, he thought of Marissa. Not with sadness, but with gratitude. Because the promise he made beside her hospital bed had become something far greater than he ever imagined. As the sun set one evening outside the original farmhouse workshop, Rowan stood alone watching golden light spill across the fields. The old pickup truck remained parked nearby, worn and weathered but still running. It reminded him that greatness doesn't always arrive wrapped in perfection. Sometimes it comes disguised as failure. Sometimes it looks old, broken, or impossible. And sometimes the people everyone laughs at are the very people who change the world. Special request, comment below with the words, "Never give up," if you believe determination can overcome even the toughest obstacles. And if this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of someone who never stopped believing in their dream, please like the video, share it with friends and family, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Beyond Single Dad. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach people who may need hope today. Because one act of belief, one second chance, and one person refusing to quit can change far more lives than anyone ever imagines.